If you met me today, you'd probably notice the scar on my jaw, the black car outside my door, and the way people lower their eyes when I walk past. What you wouldn't see is how, even now, the sound of heavy rain makes my chest tighten, like I'm back in that one night when everything I was proud of turned into dust in my hands. My life was never quiet, phones that rang after midnight, men who waited for my orders with guns under their jackets, money counted in locked rooms that smelled of smoke and fear. For years, power walked beside me like a shadow and people whispered my name the way others whisper their last prayer. I thought that meant I was untouchable. I thought I could control anything until that storm. The rain that night was angry. It hammered the roof of the old villa on the hill, slid in silver sheets down the windows, drowned the city lights below us. Thunder rolled over the sea, and every time it cracked, the glass trembled. Inside, my house was full of men and weapons, but all I could hear was my sister screaming in the next room. Angel, her voice broke, thin with pain and fear. Please don't go anywhere. Stay with me, hermano. I stood outside her bedroom door, one hand on the frame, feeling the vibration of her cries in the wood. My men moved quietly in the hallway behind me, black suits, hard faces, guns tucked at their backs. They were ready for war, but I couldn't even help my own sister bring life into this world. Maria was never supposed to be here that night. I told her 100 times, you stay in the apartment near the cathedral. This house is for business, not for family. But she was stubborn, the way you get stubborn when poverty has taken everything from you and you've decided never again. The contractions had started early, the storm had shut down half the city, and the driver thought the safest place to bring her was to me. Safer. That word tasted bitter on my tongue. I had built an empire of safety out of fear. People paid me so nothing bad would happen to them. I protected their shops, their trucks, their families from men just like me. But in that moment, with Maria's nails digging into the sheets, I was a child again, a boy standing helpless in a dark room while our mother bled out on a kitchen table, whispering our names. I had promised myself that night when I was 15 and still shaking from the smell of blood, that no one I loved would ever be that powerless again. That promise had led me into the world I now ruled, the world that everyone else called the organization in public and the Mafia in private. And yet here I was, decades later, the most feared man in half the city, and I couldn't even get a doctor up the hill. Boss, the hospital says the roads are blocked, said Nico, my right hand, standing behind me with a phone against his ear. His voice was clipped, tense in a way I wasn't used to hearing. Flooded under the bridge, they're not sending anyone. Tell them who you're talking for, I said quietly, still staring at the closed door between me and my sister. I did, he answered, his eyes lowered. They said they're sorry. Sorry. Doctors who treated my men's bullet wounds in private clinics at 3 a.m. without paperwork. Nurses who took envelopes from us every Christmas. They were all sorry when it came to coming up to my house in a storm. I took the phone from his hand, pressed it so hard against my ear that the plastic creaked. I used every name, every debt owed. I let my voice go cold the way it went when I wanted someone to remember who I was. But on the other end of the line was only the same answer: flooded streets, closed bridges, no ambulances climbing that hill tonight. When I tossed the phone back to Nico, my hand was shaking just enough for me to notice. He noticed too. His eyes flicked to it, then away, like he'd seen something too private. Find someone, I said. A midwife, a nurse, some old woman who's delivered kids in her neighborhood for 30 years. I don't care, but listen to me. I stepped closer to him until my voice was only for his ears. You ask, you pay, you don't scare her, you don't drag her by the arm. She walks in here on her own feet or she doesn't come at all. Understood? Nico nodded, jaw tense. He was loyal, but he was also used to solving problems fast, any way he could. I didn't want some terrified woman brought here at gunpoint, hands shaking too hard to hold a newborn. He signaled to 2 men. Take the Mercedes, check the clinics, the small houses near the docks. Someone will help, call in 5 minutes if you find her, 10 if you don't, move. Their footsteps faded down the corridor, swallowed by thunder and the distant growl of the sea. For a moment I couldn't move. I just listened to the storm, to the low radio murmurs from the living room where my men monitored the streets, to Maria crying out my name again. My name, not my title, not boss, not Don, just Angel. The boy who had once held her hand through nights with no electricity, counting seconds between lightning and thunder because it made her laugh. I pushed open her door. The air inside was hot and heavy, full of sweat and fear. Maria lay half sitting on the bed, hair sticking to her face, eyes wide and glassy. One of the younger girls from the kitchen pressed a damp cloth to her forehead, whispering prayers under her breath. When Maria saw me, she grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Don't leave," she gasped. "Promise me, you always leave when it's bad." I looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost midnight. Outside, somewhere down there in the city, a man who wanted me dead was probably watching the same storm and thinking it was a good night to move his pieces. There were shipments to protect, deals to watch, enemies to anticipate. And yet, standing next to that bed, with my sister's fingers cutting off my blood flow, all those things felt small, ridiculous even. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, and this time I meant it in a way I had never meant anything. "I'm here." She tried to laugh, but it twisted into a cry. I sat on the edge of the bed and let her crush my hand. With my free hand, I brushed her hair back from her forehead the way our mother used to do. The memory hit me so hard I had to look away for a second, my pulse hammering in my ears louder than the rain. Out in the hallway, I heard the metallic slide of a rifle being checked, the low murmur of men talking into radios. "Any movement on the road?" someone asked. "Just water and wind," another answered. "Still, keep your eyes open. If I was him, I'd hit this place tonight." They thought I couldn't hear them. I always heard everything in my house. The generator flickered. The light above the bed dimmed, then came back sharper, colder. Maria squeezed my hand again, hard enough to make my bones grind. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I know," I leaned closer so only she could hear me. "But you're stronger than any of them out there, you hear me, any of them." For a second, a tiny, crazed second, I wished I could put all my power, all my men, all my money into her veins just to take away that fear. If violence could fix this, I would have burned down half the city. But this was a kind of battle I had no weapon for. Minutes passed like hours. Her breathing came in shallow bursts. The girl from the kitchen wrung the cloth in a bowl, hands trembling. I checked my watch. Nico and the others had been gone too long. I stood, gently pried Maria's fingers from my hand and kissed her forehead. "I'm going to the hallway," I said. "1 minute, no more. I'll be right outside the door. Scream my name if you even think I'm leaving you. Deal?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. In the corridor, the air was cooler but just as tense. Men stood near the windows, eyes on the black road twisting up the hill. Their silhouettes were sharp against the white flashes of lightning. On the table in front of them lay maps, radios, gun magazines, life and death, arranged like a puzzle I used to solve without thinking. "Any word?" I asked. Nico shook his head once. "Their phones are out. Last call was 15 minutes ago. They had found someone, a woman, a midwife, they thought." "They thought," my voice went colder, sharper. "What does they thought mean?" "She works in a clinic but also at home. Private births, poor families, that kind of thing. Good reputation, clean hands." He hesitated. "Street says she doesn't like our people." "Most decent people don't," I muttered. I walked to the window and stared out. The road down the hill was a dark river, broken only by the weak glow of 1 or 2 streetlights that still worked. Somewhere in that darkness, my car was cutting through water, carrying a stranger who had no idea whose house she was being brought to. Outside, thunder roared again. Inside, the radio crackled. "Black SUV seen near the lower turn," a voice reported. "Lights off." I felt everyone in the room go still. "Their plates?" Nico asked, already lowering his hand to the gun slipping from under his jacket. "Can't see," came the answer. "Too much rain." It could be nothing, it could be everything. I should have been thinking about positions, about how fast my men could move if the SUV was full of rivals coming to finally take a shot at the king on the hill. Instead, something else punched straight through all that calculation. If that SUV blocked the road, if bullets started flying, my men out there with the midwife would be trapped. And Maria might be left alone up here with only a scared kitchen girl and my useless hands. I closed my eyes for half a second, long enough to feel the old terror rising, the one I hadn't let myself feel since I was a teenager holding a bloody towel to my mother's side. "Double the guards at the gate," I said quietly. "But nobody fires first, nobody panics. If it's them, they'll show their faces sooner or later. Right now we have another life to think about." Nico looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. He nodded, gave the orders. Men moved, checking magazines, taking positions. It was a dance they knew by heart. Then over everything, over the storm, over the static of radios, over Maria's distant cry, came a sound so simple it cut straight through my chest. The heavy knock of a hand on the front door. 3 slow, solid knocks. Every gun in the room seemed to lift at once. The hallway stretched between me and the entrance like it had grown longer. For a second, nobody breathed. "Camera," I said. One of the younger guys rushed to the monitor. The black and white image flickered, fuzzy with rain. A figure stood alone under the concrete archway, no umbrella, no hat, just a woman soaked to the bone, hair plastered to her cheeks, one hand on the iron gate, the other gripping a worn leather bag. "Where are the others?" I snapped. "Where is the car?" He flipped to another camera. Headlights still burned weakly on the road, skewed at an angle, one wheel stuck against the high curb, water rushing around it. I could just make out the shape of a man inside, slumped but moving. "Looks like they slid," the kid said. "Not hit, just stuck." The woman at the gate lifted her face toward the camera without knowing it was there. Her eyes were dark, focused, alive with something fierce that wasn't fear. Lightning flashed behind her, outlining her in white for half a second, like a photograph you don't forget. Her lips moved. "Turn on the intercom," I ordered. A second later, her voice crackled through the speaker. It was low, a little breathless from climbing the hill in the storm, but steady. "I'm the midwife," she shouted over the rain. "I was told there's a woman in labor. Open this door. If you make me wait out here and something happens to her or the baby, you'll live with that. I won't." One of my men let out a short, disbelieving breath. "She doesn't know who she's talking to." No, she didn't, or maybe she did and simply didn't care. For a long heartbeat, I stood there, caught between two worlds. The one I ruled, where every door opened only when I said so, where strangers were always suspects, where trust was a story we told fools. And the one on the other side of that gate, a drenched woman with fire in her eyes, asking me to choose life over fear. Behind me, from Maria's room, came a broken, desperate scream that tore down whatever hesitation was left inside me. "Open it," I said. Lock slid back, heavy and loud in the small entry hall. The iron door groaned as it swung inward. Wind and rain rushed in first, cold and wild, then she stepped across the threshold. For a second, the whole house seemed to hold its breath. She lifted her gaze, met mine, and didn't flinch. Her clothes clung to her, her hands were shaking a little from the cold, but her eyes, those eyes were clear, steady, almost stubborn. They went over my suit, my men, the guns, the marble floor, then came back to my face as if weighing something deeper than all of that. "Where is she?" she asked. No sir, no please, no fear in her tone, just urgency, just concern. And standing there, with the storm roaring outside and my men waiting for my signal, I felt something happen inside my chest that I hadn't felt in years. My world, built brick by brick on power and fear, shifted, just a fraction, because of a soaked stranger with a leather bag and a voice that didn't tremble in front of me. She brushed past my men like they were furniture, water dripping from her coat onto the marble, that leather bag pressed tight against her side. "Upstairs," I said, already moving. She kept up with me step for step, her wet shoes squeaking on the polished wood. Behind us, I could feel 20 eyes on my back, the confusion in the air like smoke. They were used to people lowering their heads in this house, measuring every word. This woman didn't even slow down. Inside Maria's room, the heat hit her face and she didn't waste a second. She tossed her soaked coat on a chair, rolled up her sleeves and went straight to the bed. "Hola, my ama," she said softly, kneeling beside Maria. "My name is Lucía. I'm here for you, not for them. Look at me." Maria's fingers dug into the sheet. Sweat shone on her forehead. When she heard that gentle voice, her eyes snapped to the stranger's face and clung there like she'd found something solid in the middle of a flood. "It hurts," Maria gasped. "It's too soon, it's—" "I know," Lucía cut in, but her tone stayed calm. "Listen to me. Your body knows what to do. I just have to listen to it with you. We're going to do this together." Something in the way she spoke, steady, almost stubborn, pulled the panic out of the room piece by piece. Maria nodded, tears spilling sideways into her hair. I realized my fists were clenched. I forced my hands to open. Lucía glanced back at me for exactly 1 second, eyes sharp, measuring. She looked younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, but her gaze had none of the softness of youth. There were thin lines around her mouth that only come from years of holding other people's fear. "I need hot water, clean sheets, and light that won't die if the power flickers," she said, "and everyone who isn't helping out." My men in the doorway stiffened. They weren't used to being dismissed like delivery boys. "They stay," I said automatically. "Power is a reflex when you've lived like me." Lucía didn't look impressed. Then they help, she snapped back. Want to boil water, want to change these sheets, want to stand outside and make sure nobody bursts in here screaming or waving guns while she's in the middle of a contraction. If you can't control your people in this house, senor, you have bigger problems than me. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Even Maria's breathing seemed to pause. Then I heard myself say, "You heard her." The words fell strange in my mouth. I watched them land on my men's faces, saw the shock, the reluctance, and then the obedience. Nico stepped forward, nodding once, and started giving quiet orders like this was just another operation. Towels, water, battery lamps from the basement. Now. Lucía turned back to Maria, already halfway inside another world. Her hands were quick and sure, checking, adjusting, listening to the rhythm of a body in turmoil. The kitchen girl hovered near the head of the bed, following every instruction with wide, wet eyes. I moved to the side wall, close enough to reach Maria, far enough not to be in the way. Lightning flashed outside, painting Lucia's profile in white. Wet hair braided loosely down her back, jaw set, pupils wide and focused. She was beautiful, yes, but not in the way my world usually meant that word. Not like the women who laughed too loud at my table, dripping in jewelry I'd paid for. Her beauty was something cleaner, rough around the edges, born from purpose. "Breathe with me, Maria," Lucía murmured, "in and out like waves." "Like the sea," I added without thinking. My sister's eyes fluttered to me. For a second her face changed. She was 16 again, asking if we could go to the beach even though we had no money for the bus. I held her hand and she gripped it like a rope. The radio at my hip crackled. "Boss," came a low voice. "That black SUV's closer. Looks like it's stopping before the gate. 2, no, 3 men stepping out." I felt the air in my lungs go thin. "Positions," I answered quietly. "No noise near this room, we don't scare her." I glanced at Lucia's back as I said it, as if my voice itself might cut her focus. Maria groaned, her whole body arching. Lucía pressed a hand to her shoulder, steady, grounding. "That voice," Lucía said without looking at me, "they call you boss like that a lot." There was no fear in the question, just observation. "It's a busy house," I replied. Her hand never stopped moving. "Busy with what?" I almost laughed. "Do you ask this many questions to every man who calls you in at midnight on a hill with armed guards?" "Only the ones who make women give birth in fortresses," she shot back. Another contraction hit. Maria cried out and words dissolved in pain. Lucía guided her through it, counting, breathing with her, her own face tightening with empathy. I watched the tendons in her neck, the way she almost took the pain into her own body just to make it lighter for my sister. My chest ached with a feeling I wouldn't name. When the wave passed, Maria slumped back, exhausted. "You're doing so well," Lucía whispered, brushing damp hair from her face. "I need to check how far along you are. Okay, might be fast. Sometimes storms wake babies up, you know that." She smiled, small but real. "They want to meet the thunder." Maria let out a weak laugh that turned into a sob. I squeezed her hand, swallowing against the lump in my throat. In the corner, one of the battery lamps flickered to life, throwing a softer glow over the room. Outside, thunder rolled deep and low. Somewhere beneath it, almost too faint to catch, I could hear the distant shifting sounds of men taking positions in the rain, boots in mud, the subtle clink of metal. Lucía finished her exam and looked up, her eyes serious. "She's progressing fast," she said. "But the baby's heart, it's a bit quick, not dangerous yet, just listening carefully." "Is that bad?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. "It's a stormy night, in case you haven't noticed." She tilted her head, studying me properly for the first time. "Stress does funny things to a woman's body, people, noise, fear." Her gaze flicked toward the door, then back to my eyes. "You can't control the rain, but you can control this room." Something in me bristled, that old instinct to push back, to remind her whose house she was in. But her words hit a different place. Control the room, control the fear. Not with guns, not with deals, just with presence. I stepped closer to the bed. "Everyone out," I said. Nico opened his mouth, "Boss, with respect." "You heard me, 2 men at the end of the hall, nobody else in this doorway unless I call. I don't want Maria seeing a single gun, not one. If those bastards outside decide to test the gate tonight, they do it at a distance." My voice dropped ice cold. "You use your head, no bullets near this room. If they get past the garden, then you call me, not before." Nico searched my face, then nodded once. He signaled and my men filed out, leaving a thick quiet in their place. The girl from the kitchen stayed. Lucía had already grabbed her wrist, holding her in that gentle grip that was somehow stronger than force. Better, Lucía murmured. I realized then that she had seen everything, guns, radios, the way my men watched my face for orders, and still she stayed focused on the woman in labor, on the life in the balance. As the door shut, she glanced at me again, longer this time. What do they call you? She asked softly, not curious, more like she was checking a fact she already knew. Angel, I said, my name is Angel. Her lips twisted not quite into a smile. No, that's what your sister calls you. Her eyes didn't leave mine. What do they call you out there? In that small hot room with my sister between heaven and hell on a sweat-soaked mattress, it felt suddenly obscene to say it. The name the newspapers only printed when they wanted to blame someone. The name sprayed on warehouse walls in cheap paint. The name whispered in police stations and back alley bars. She waited, and for the first time in years, I felt ashamed of a word that had once made me feel safe. They call me the Angel of the Coast, I forced out, Angel de la Costa. Silence wrapped around the syllables. Maria's soft whimpers, the rain, the distant rumble of an engine on the hill, all of it faded under the weight of that truth. Lucía studied me for a long second. In her eyes I saw recognition flip into something else, not fear. Pain. I thought so, she said quietly. I've seen your work before. My throat tightened, meaning. She didn't answer. Another contraction hit Maria, stealing her breath, dragging us both back into the violent, urgent now. Later, Lucía said, moving quickly into position. Hold her hand, Angel. Right now we have a life to bring into your world. Then we'll talk about the lives you've taken from mine. The words hit like a blade slid gently between my ribs. And for the first time since I built this empire, I wasn't sure if I deserved for that baby in my sister's womb to carry my blood, or her hatred. Her sentence hung in the air like the echo of a gunshot no one else heard. I stared at her, my skin gone cold. What do you mean you've seen? Later, she repeated, voice hard now, eyes locked on Maria. She doesn't need your ghosts in this room. Maria cried out again, dragging my attention back where it belonged. Her nails dug crescents into my palm. I leaned over her, my breath hot against her ear. Look at me, Hermanita, I whispered. You're not alone, I'm here, I'm not leaving. Her eyes unfocused, fighting the pain, but I saw a flicker of trust. That small, fragile thing I had never managed to earn from anyone outside this family. Outside the door, the radio crackled again, muffled through the wood. Gate secure, someone reported. SUV still parked halfway down, 3 silhouettes, maybe 4, they're just watching. Just watching, waiting, measuring the right moment to strike, like wolves circling a wounded animal. Lucia's head snapped toward the sound, her gaze cut to the door, then to me. There is a problem, yes, she asked, quiet but direct. This house is full of problems, I said. None of them are yours. No, her eyes flashed. If a bullet comes through that wall while I'm trying to pull your niece or nephew out of your sister's body, I'd say it becomes my problem pretty quickly. She was right, and she was standing there in my sister's blood and sweat, risking whatever history lay between us, and I had no answer that could excuse the world I'd built. You can leave, I heard myself say, voice low, strained. If you want, I'll have someone drive you down right now. Maria's fingers crushed mine. No, she cried, panic spiking. Don't let her go, Angel, please, please don't. Lucía laid a firm hand on her shoulder. I'm not going anywhere, she said, eyes never leaving mine. I knew where I was coming when I got in that car. I knew whose hill this was. Whatever is outside that gate, it was there before me and it'll be there after. This woman and this child didn't ask for your enemies. They didn't ask for mine. I'm here for them. The storm pounded the roof like it was trying to break through to listen. I swallowed hard. My enemies, I repeated. You talk like you know them personally. Her jaw tightened. For a second I saw a flash, an ambulance light reflected in dark eyes, a hospital corridor, a metal table, grief. I know what your wars do to people who never picked up a gun, she said softly. That's all you need to know tonight. Maria groaned, cutting off any answer I might have thrown back. Lucía moved fast, checking, positioning, her hands a blur of practiced care. We're close, she said, very close. When the next contraction comes, you're going to push like you're pushing the whole storm out of you, me escuchas. Don't be afraid of the pain, let it pass through you. I can't, Maria gasped, I'm too tired. You survived childhood with this man as your brother, Lucía interrupted, nodding at me. You can do anything. It was a small joke, but it cracked something heavy in the room. Maria let out a ragged laugh that turned into a sob, then into a scream as the next wave hit. She pushed, the tendons in her neck stood out like ropes, veins blew against her temple. I felt the power in her small body, the same wild strength that had kept us alive when there was no food, no father, no light. I whispered nonsense into her hair, memories of the sea, cheap ice cream, the first pair of second-hand shoes I bought her with dirty money and shaking hands. Again, Lucía urged. That's it, Maria, again, you're almost there, don't hold back for anyone. Outside, thunder crashed almost on top of us. For a heartbeat, the lights dimmed, the battery lamp flickered. Then the house shuddered with a different kind of sound. A distant crack that was not thunder. My body recognized it before my mind did. Gunfire. Short, sharp bursts swallowed quickly by the storm but unmistakable. 1, 2, 3. The girl from the kitchen flinched and made a sign of the cross. Maria's eyes flew open, wild fear bulldozing her focus. What was that? She gasped. Angel, what was that? Fireworks, I lied instantly, leaning closer. It's the neighborhood, you know how they are. Even as I said it, my hand went to the radio at my belt. Nico, I hissed, voice low. Static. Then they tested the fence. Warning shots, nothing more. We fired in the air too, they're nervous, so are my men. I closed my eyes for half a second, then, listen to me. Nobody fires at this house unless they cross the wall. I don't care if they dance in the rain until morning. No bullets near the east wing. You keep that side a cemetery. But boss, I said what I said. The steel came back into my voice on its own. You want to explain to me later why my sister's child never took its first breath because you wanted to show off tonight. Silence, then a quiet entendido. Lucía had paused, listening. She didn't understand every word, but she understood enough. Her eyes found mine. Fireworks, she repeated. Sometimes men with guns think they're firework artists, I answered. She studied me, searching for something, maybe the line where my cruelty ended and any trace of human being began. You can't stop the whole war for one child, she said. Watch me, I shot back. For the first time since she'd entered my house, a flicker of something like respect crossed her face. It was gone in a second, swallowed by the work in front of her. She took Maria's hand, guiding it to her own chest. Feel my heartbeat, she said quietly. Steady, slow, breathe with me, let them be idiots out there. In here, it's just you and this baby. One more push when it comes. Don't steal their first cry because of someone else's noise. Maria nodded weakly, tears sliding sideways. The next contraction grabbed her and shook her whole body. She screamed, raw from a place beyond words. Lucia's voice cut through the sound. Push, Maria, now, that's it, don't run from it, into it, my ama, you're almost, yes, just like that, just like that. Angel, Maria gasped, her voice shattering, don't let me die. The same words our mother had whispered in my ear as the light left her eyes. My knees almost buckled, I tightened my grip on her hand until my knuckles turned white. You're not dying, I said, and it came out as an oath, a threat, a prayer. Not tonight, not in my house, not while I still have blood in my veins. Something wet and hot pricked my own eyes. I blinked hard, but one tear escaped, burning its way down my cheek. Lucía saw it. She didn't comment. She only nodded once, like she'd been waiting to see if there was anything under all that stone. Head is coming, she murmured, tone turning all professional again. Good, very good, Maria, listen to me. One more, fue it strong. This is the last hill. After this, the pain changes. It becomes someone else's first breath. Do you understand? Maria nodded, then shook her head, then nodded again, teeth gritted. The house went suddenly darker. The generator coughed, stuttered, then choked out completely. The bulb above us blinked twice and died. The battery lamp gave a weak, dying glow, fighting the dark. Thunder roared, closer than ever, rattling the windows in their frames. And in that exact same heartbeat, another burst of gunfire cracked through the night, closer this time, echoing off stone. The room plunged into near blackness. Maria sobbed in terror, the girl squealed. Shadows jumped huge and distorted on the walls. Light, Lucía snapped. I need light now or we risk tearing. In the dark, my hand fumbled at my pocket, closing around the cold rectangle of my phone. My fingers were clumsy with adrenaline. For once, the expensive device felt like something useless and small in my palm. Stay with her, I barked to the girl, though she was already frozen beside the bed. My thumb found the screen. A blinding white square exploded into the darkness. I held it up with one hand over Lucia's shoulder, angling it so the glow hit where her hands were, not her eyes. She squinted, then adjusted, the muscles in her jaw flexing. Her fingers moved with quick precision in the harsh, artificial light, everything raw and exposed. No shadows to soften what was happening. Just flesh, blood, and the tiny, crowning curve of a damp, dark head forcing its way into the world. Outside, through the walls, I heard shouting now. Men's voices, a command, the sharp report of a weapon answered by another. The storm tried to swallow it, but my body translated every sound. I could have been downstairs, gun in hand, in less than 30 seconds. For years, that had been my instinct. Run to the gunfire, put myself in front, prove I was still the center of this violent universe. Instead, I stood there, one hand gripping my sister's, the other holding a small rectangle of light above a stranger's wet, steady hands, and realized that for the first time, my presence might matter more in a room of 3 women than in a courtyard full of men with rifles. "Don't look at me," Lucia said quietly, sensing my eyes on her. "Look at her, she's the bravest one here." I turned my head. Maria's face was twisted, but under the pain there was something else. Fury, determination, love so fierce it almost scared me. She sucked in air, buried her chin into her chest, and pushed one last time, a guttural sound ripping from deep inside her. "There," Lucia whispered, voice breaking just a little. "There you are, come on, Pequeno, don't make us wait." For a second, the world held its breath. The gunfire outside stopped. The thunder rolled away, like it was moving further out to sea. All that was left was the sound of the storm's rain, my racing pulse, and the silent, terrible question hanging in that dark room. Would this child, born in the center of my empire, take its first breath in my hands? Or would the only sound be the storm devouring another life I had failed to protect? If this story touched your heart, don't leave it here. Like the video, share it with someone who believes people can change, and subscribe for more deep, emotional Mafia love stories. Tell me in the comments which moment hit you the hardest.